argument, Elena, that the Trump administration is making here is that that allowing transgender troops to serve hurts lethality and it hurts readiness. What do you say to that?
Well, there's no evidence of that. I think that, if that was the case, we've seen transgender people serving honorably for the last several years. And what has changed between now and then? They've just woken up to a new administration who has a different outlook on their ability to serve. So I think that, if you talk to people who are serving on active duty alongside transgender troops, they're not making these complaints. The leaders in the military are not making these complaints. These are political complaints about military service. So I think that all of the courts that have looked at this issue and looked at it, have said,
being a former military, Marine Corps 4 years, 29 Palms, McCaxey, Marine Corps Airborne Combat Center. Yeah, it would be a huge distraction because as just a biological male, biological female, you already have enough going on and all the things that you have to go through, period. To throw anything else into the mix. Anything. In this case, in confliction with your biological makeup is a problem. Throw something else in there. Any family situation that you can imagine. A loved one dying, you even throw a spouse in there. As a matter of fact, in the Marine Corps in particular, I don't recommend you getting married if you are joining the Marine Corps. You can plot your course for your career and whatever the case. Be in there 4 years, after that, get out, get married, blah, blah, blah. Point is, anything you throw into the mix for your military service is going to be a distraction to you. And then, on top of all the other things that they're talking about, the military was paying for transition surgeries and hormones and all of this type of shit. No, that does not help our military at all. And being the most powerful nation on this earth because of our military, that's why we have been able to maintain such a force throughout this world. We can't do anything to jeopardize the power, the well-being of our military. Because the military is just people. It's just people that we know. All of us, present company included. And then you're going to throw this in there, this transgender nonsense, which is a very, very, very small population, but their voice is powerful because these evil Satanist Democrats have given them so much power. They've given them so much power. I guarantee you a lot of these so-called transgender people, they don't want all this attention, but Democrats just like doing this type shit. So let's continue.
There's nothing in fact to back up what the government is claiming here. In fact, the judges challenged them to produce evidence, and they couldn't produce any evidence. So I think it's a really dark day for our country, where basically we're allowed to discriminate against a class of people.
Scott, if they can't produce evidence that this actually does, in fact, have an impact on readiness, I mean, how is this not then just discrimination?
Well, it's the opinion of the commander-in-chief.
This is very easy. Just like most of the shit. Ask 10, just 10, across any military branch spectrum of men, women that are not considered trans. Put the trans over there. Put them over there. Put them over there. Ask 10 men, women, mostly men, because men are more logical. We don't. Feelings will not play a factor into this at all. Scratch that. I'm just gonna say ask 10 men. 10 military men. If you were to go with the majority, because this is a so-called democracy, I wouldn't say that it's a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, but we'll just go with democracy. That's what the word opportunity is. Ask 10, and if you go with the majority, they would say no. If you're trans, you should not be in the military. That's a simple assumption on my part, and I guess if you want to make it simple, because if you do something like that, that's very easy. That's very easy.
Who, according to our Constitution, is the head of the military. I mean, regardless of anyone's opinion or anybody's, whatever side you're on, whether you're for it or against it, at some juncture, the president's the commander-in-chief of the military, and he has and should have broad latitude to determine how the armed forces should be operated. And so I think that's what he's doing here. I think that's ultimately what the court said today, was the president is the commander-in-chief, and we gotta respect that.
But I mean, to her point, if there's not a downside, and it's been going on for years now, and I mean, I'm just presenting your argument to them.
Yeah.
What is the argument other than Trump, Hegseth just doesn't want trans people in the military?
I think that the president, we'll ultimately see. I think that's why the court is allowing the president to move forward with this until it works itself through the court system. Maybe the Supreme Court will be the final arbiter here to say, yeah or nay, you can do this. But ultimately, I think the court is showcasing deference to the executive, saying that, look, you're the president, you're over the military. You do, for the most part, get to sort of dictate the standards of our military. And I don't really see how you can push back against that. Again, we'll see what happens in the court.
I can.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can. What if the president wakes up tomorrow and says, I don't want any black people in the military? Do we give deference to him on that? Well, no. No, wait a second. It's not.
Here we go. And then you always have a fucking knucklehead that come out here and conflate with what trans people go through, as opposed to, in her particular case, with this green blazer on, and says, what if I don't want any black people? Stop this shit. Black is not a choice. Trans is a choice. That's the biggest difference. So just, and it would always take a white liberal, mostly a white female liberal, to come with this type of nonsense. Now, that does not resonate with me whatsoever. But they always do it. So let's listen to this nonsense.
Not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous because you're discriminating against a group of people in a very similar way. No,
I knew you were going to say that, but it's
excuse me. Well, I'm glad you.
But hold on. I'm curious. Why is it ridiculous? I mean, you just said the president should be the one who just decides.
Right.
So if he decides, and wakes up tomorrow and says, I think it's bad for morale, it's bad for cohesiveness, for there to be black people in the military, Latino people in the military, just in her hypothetical.
Because he actually is the commander-in-chief of the military, and what it says to me is that he has actually listened to whatever number of troops across any branch of the military that he has decided to listen to, and this is what they have said. It just, ultimately, he's a commander-in-chief, and it's on him. But because I think he has really listened to the actual troops, the actual normal people that are in the military, and he has made this decision, because it's not good. It's not good for morale and readiness and all this. If you're in the military, the only thing you need to worry about is readiness. Let's go. What's next? Training. in the military, we can't really worry about how we feel today. You just can't. Your life is at stake. If your life is at stake, no one cares about how the fuck you feel today. I don't feel this way. No, what do we need to do? Well, we need to get these weapons ready. We gotta do this. We got training tomorrow. Just no.
Hypothetical scenario. What's the difference between that and what we're seeing here?
I mean, are you really going to go down this ridiculous?
I'm just.
I'm sorry.
This is
asking
ridiculous.
based-
This is a ridiculous argument.
Well,
okay.
The president,
what they've already
the president, and the secretary,
Let me just-
the president and secretary of defense have an argument here. They believe that readiness and unit cohesion and overall operations of the military are impacted by this. That is their opinion, and that is the opinion of the commander-in-chief, who the Constitution gives broad latitude to run the armed forces. So that's their opinion. You're allowed to have one. You're allowed to have one. You're also allowed to run for president and become commander-in-chief yourself. But until you do,
sometimes it just gets to the point to where these certain arguments are just so simple. And these people that are opposed to an argument like this in particular, I'm just like, they just have an agenda. They have a narrative that they want to set, and just be damned about anything else. This is just the narrative that they want to present. Trump did this, Trump did that. Well, you don't think Trump just talked to normal military people? And this is the consensus that he has gathered from the masses of military people that he talked to, right? And because this so-called transgender population is just so minute to where the point that it really doesn't even matter, and he may have even talked to some of them, to where this is something that the Democrats have pushed forward so hard to where he feels, as the commander-in-chief, he needs to make a command decision to where this shit is not gonna fly, because it interferes with readiness. And that's the biggest thing, because technically we're not involved in any conflicts. Technically, I mean, we know different. Those of us who know, we know different, right? So
until you do,
I
he's the commander-in-chief.
I have to just say,
That's-
I didn't
you know.
hear an answer to the hypothetical, right?
That's
I just didn't hear it.
hypothetical, though.
I
That's
didn't.
so
I mean,
ludicrous.
okay. The definition of discrimination, according to American Psychological Association, discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people or groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. What is the difference between, prohibiting certain groups like transgender people from serving versus, people based on their race or even their gender, frankly?
I personally think there's a difference, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well, I would
Do
say
you believe that race and
he don't want to even argue.
are you
with
saying
these-
that the quality
I'm
of race
just-
and the quality of
I'm just asking.
transgender are the same?
I'm just asking the question because I think you're making there's a distinction, but you're not explaining why.
No, I'm asking you. You guys brought up the hypothetical. Are you arguing that someone's race is the same as someone choosing to
Elena?
become
But
transgender?
your argument, you've made the argument twice that the commander-in-chief's opinion is all that matters. You've said that twice now.
Well,
So if
it
they wake up-
is.
So if
Yeah,
he wakes
it
up
is.
tomorrow and says it's not okay to be gay or lesbian and serve, because that's his opinion, there's nothing to back that up. They meet the physical standards, they meet the intellectual standards, they have voluntarily decided to serve their country, to give their life for this country. So many of us don't have to. That it's the opinion without any basis in fact that's what matters more than the Constitution of equal rights and equal protection.
Go ahead. No,
No, I was going to say the other thing, or there's a few things that bother me about this, and mostly it was the language of the
Jamel
policy,
Hill.
right? When you're reading at some of these words, transgender people as inherently untruthful, undisciplined, dishonorable. That's like a very weighty thing to say about people who are courageously deciding to protect this country. The other problem, Scott, is that it's never enough. It's bathrooms today. It's sports today. It's sports tomorrow. It's the military today.
Well, it's also sports today, by the way.
Yeah, it is sports today. And
80% of Americans agree, by the way.
Oh, that's fine. And 80%, guess what? The majority sometimes is wrong. That also happens, right?
What?
Because the majority used to believe that Dr.
But
Martin
that's
Luther
what we
King
got.
Jr. was somebody who was a threat.
She gonna say the majority most of the time is wrong, but we have already agreed on a certain set of rules, right? So if this so-called democracy that they say, democracy simply means the majority rules, right? So now she says the majority is sometimes wrong. So in this particular case, we don't want to go off those rules. I know it's a small point, but it's a giant point when you put all these things together. It's what these Democrats do. And especially coming from someone who has 90% of someone else's hair in their head. Look, I mean, how much can I trust you when none of this is you? But let's go.
As somebody who was not a good American, the majority of people used to be against civil rights. Were they right? No, they weren't. And so
boy.
the whole point is when you target one group, and inevitably that line moves to everybody else. And I'm not saying he's coming for black people tomorrow, but considering that this is a military or this is a leadership that is already using DEI as code word for black people already when it comes to the military, suddenly when you don't protect the most vulnerable, you wind up making it worse for everybody else that's in the marginalized community.
No.
You don't think trans people are vulnerable in this country?
So is it your position that the commander-in-chief should recruit people who you're describing as vulnerable into the
No,
lethal
he
fighting force?
should recruit people who want to serve and protect this country. And it's really kind of ironic considering he dodged the draft that he suddenly has an opinion about who
See, it goes back to, it's really not about the military. It's about the problem that they have with him. They don't give a fuck about the military. They don't give a fuck about trans people. They don't give a fuck about these illegal immigrants, Kilmar Abrego Garcia. They don't give a fuck about none of this. They give a fuck about fighting Trump. And anytime in this country that they go so hard against one person, you have to question them, not that one person. It automatically should open your eyes. Well, why are they going so hard against this guy? Even I can point to an example like Diddy. All the stuff that has came out about him, I'm not saying he's a saint. I'm not saying I agree with nothing. I only go off with what we know. But I still do a side eye like, why are they going after this guy so hard? Right? Why are they going after Epstein so hard? Not saying it's right or wrong. I just have to question it. Why are they going after these people so hard? Right? Just have to question it. I'm not saying right or wrong. I don't agree. I don't disagree. I'll never know what these people did. They could have done some unspeakable things. I just don't know. But I will question. I question every fucking thing. I question everything. And once we dig down into the weeds, we may find when they go after certain people for certain things, it's because those people going after these, and I'm going to talk some real roundabout type shit because I just don't know. But when they go after certain people for certain things, that they may have a vested interest in the information that these people have.
The good news is, and Elena, you pointed this out, this is going through the court system. The other side has the opportunity to present evidence.
Except for tomorrow, there's going to be thousands of people who wake up and get processed out. The harm will be done.
And I certainly understand that. But again, there's still an opportunity for it to continue through the proper process.
Right, but they wake up tomorrow without a job, being removed from their commands. Operational readiness will be impacted. And so there's commands that are going to be left without leaders. There's going to be real life implications for theaters around the world where our military is protecting this country. And for what end?
So,
How
I
are we better?
guess, Elaine, I guess my point is, if a strong enough evidence is presented throughout the court process, all the way up to SCOTUS, and it's ultimately believed, okay, hey, the other side has enough evidence where we can't rule in favor of the executive, then the executive, I believe, would respect that decision. But we have to allow this thing to move forward and see what was
what was your experience in the military like? Did you serve after you had transitioned, or
No, I served before my transition.
so you weren't in during your
No,
at all?
No.
Okay.
I came to know that I was transgender while I was serving with a top secret and above clearance, and I knew that I couldn't pass my polygraph test, and so I had to make a tough decision. Do I stay true to my character, my values, my integrity, or do I choose to leave this role and live a private life? And so I think that the challenge is that the injunction was to allow people to continue to serve while the courts played out. Right? So there would be no harm done to these folks, giving the courts an opportunity to work through these issues so people wouldn't lose their jobs. Now they're going to wake up tomorrow without jobs. They can't just come back in for serving 22 years, waiting for this court case to work its way through for 6, 9 months, 2 years.
So you hadn't so was there a prohibition on you transitioning while you were in the military?
Back in that time, there was a ban against serving if you were, the don't ask, don't
This
tell
was under-
policy.
yeah. This was in the mid-90s.
This was in the mid-90s. Yeah.
So, but let me, can I ask you a question? Because I think this is relevant. You know, Elena was serving, left because of this policy. How many people is it okay to lose who are competent, who are doing their jobs because for reasons like that? I mean, at the time, she could have been.
I think her question is as many as possible. All of y'all can go. All of y'all can go because, again, one of the tenets is about morale. Because what it will point to is when us normal people are doing whatever it is we need to do, those other people get some type of special treatment, and that never flies in the military. That is not gonna fly in the military at all. I gotta go through all this. Why they gotta get pulled aside and be treated this way when you just so hard on me? I don't give a fuck about that. But I do know people that feel that way. You know, you're in your feelings. That's just not me, because I'm just here to do what I gotta do and let's go. But that goes to morale. Morale is just not me. Morale is the whole group. Morale is the whole group. So if the whole group is not on the same accord, we're not on the same page, then morale is affected. Morale is affected. I don't know any of these people. If any of these people on this panel have served in the military, because if they did, they would know what to say. Not saying they're disqualified, but I'm just saying.
A gay or lesbian, and it probably would have been the same result as well. I mean, I think that's why ultimately they ended Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
I mean, I think
discrimination.
I think ultimately the Commander-in-Chief and the Secretary of Defense have to decide comprehensively about troop levels, troop readiness, and unit cohesion, and overall recruitment. They're actually quite happy with recruitment right now.
But that has never been a military standard that transgender people have not met. So the military standards have not been lowered for people who are transgender. And I think that's the issue here. And the courts that have looked at this issue in depth have said this is pure animus, that there is no evidence of this. So if you actually take the rhetoric out of it and look at the issue at its heart, all the courts say the same thing.
There's plenty of evidence about this. This transition person, which I was questioning from the very beginning. And so, yes, we have confirmed that this person sound like they got a golf ball in their throat or something like this, and they're talking like almost sounding like Kermit the Frog. If anybody knows anything about the Muppets or anything like that. So anyway, that's gonna be the end of this video. If you like this video, share the video, comment on the video, go over to YouTube, Mr. Info 5000. Peace.